Welcome to Truth and Reckoning, a broadcast from CELDF. In this show, we'll learn from frontline organizers and communities fighting against environmental destruction. We'll explore different perspectives and innovative strategies for movement building, the potency and the potential of rights of nature, and effective action in defense of our communities. And we'll share inspiring stories of people working towards right relationship with the land and each other. I am your host, Max Wilbert. Today we bring you an exclusive interview with a tree sitter named Fable, who has climbed into the canopy of a Douglas fir tree located in Washington State, west of Seattle on the Olympic Peninsula, in the Elwha River watershed, just outside the small city of Port Angeles. This tree sit was launched on May 6th, and at this time, logging imminently threatens an area of forest called the Parched timber sale, as well as many other areas of forest throughout the region. This particular forest is not old growth, but it is what is called legacy forest. These legacy forests were logged prior to industrial logging. They were logged with hand tools, and they were left to naturally regrow. So at this point, many of these forests are approaching or even over a century old. They're biodiverse, they're home to many species of native wildlife, rare plants, and they're often located in these lowland areas of Washington State, which have mostly been destroyed or turned into industrial timber plantations. And over time, these forests are aging and growing into old growth conditions. There has been a movement for the past 4 years or so to protect these legacy forests in the Pacific Northwest. Most of these forests exist on state land that's managed by the Washington State Department of Natural Resources. And the movement to protect them has been using legal tactics, filing lawsuits against the state to protect these forests, using various forms of direct action, such as going out to the timber sales and ripping down all the flagging and marking and stakes that are used to prepare these timber sales in advance of cutting them as a form of public protest. People have been showing up and rallying at public meetings. And as I said, a tree sit was launched to defend this particular patch of forest nearly 2 weeks ago now. At this point, there is an urgent need for more supporters on scene. There has been a court injunction preventing the Murphy Plywood Company from logging this patch of forest, but that injunction expires today, the day that we're releasing this podcast, Wednesday, May 20th, 2025. Organizers with some of the groups that are litigating over these timber sales have asked the Clallam County Court to extend that injunction for a further 90 days. And it's possible that the court might do so. There's a hearing on that this Friday. But until then, the forest is currently entirely unprotected, except by the brave actions of people who are putting their bodies between chainsaws and the trees. We think this is an important concept because it represents a shift in thinking, a shift in tactics, a shift in how we conceptualize our opposition to the destruction of the planet. That's very valuable. It represents a shift from petitioning those in power to ask them to please stop destroying the planet towards a mindset in which our communities take direct action to protect the land ourselves. We take matters into our own hands, recognizing that the existing power structures are often not just failing in terms of sustainability and justice, but they're failing to uphold the will of the people. They're failing to reflect true democratic principles of self-determination. This reflects a new organizational focus here at CELDF on community resistance and resilience. We are working to support and advocate for various forms of direct action and confrontation with power. At the same time, we're supporting the growth of alternatives to industrialism and modernity and capitalism. You can learn more about this shift in the article introducing our CRR, Community Resistance and Resilience Program, which I've linked in the description of this podcast. I've also shared more information there about the Legacy Forest Defense Movement and this particular action. I've been working to support this campaign as much as possible behind the scenes over the last several weeks, so I'm very pleased that we're able to share this conversation with you. The tactics that are being presented here are direct action, but they can be used in concert and in collaboration and in alignment with other tactics like rights of nature, like building alternatives in the community, like legal challenges to these projects. All these tactics can be mutually reinforcing. Without further ado, I bring you this interview. It was conducted by CELDF's Executive Director, Kai Huschka, with a forest defender who goes by Fable, who's currently 80 feet up in a Douglas fir tree, threatened imminently with logging.
All right. So I guess one of the first sort of basic questions that people might be thinking is like, why this action for you? Like, what was it that made you do what you're doing currently?
Yeah, there's kind of two parts to that. One is just I had the time and the opening in my schedule to do it. That's kind of the boring side, but for me, this particular way of spending my time and supporting this particular action in this way definitely came from a very emotional place. I feel pretty strongly about protecting, in particular, the Elwha River. I think, like, the first time I saw the upper dam removal site, I just, like, cried because I grew up fishing and talking to my dad always about sort of river ecology. And I mean, I grew up in an area very affected by logging, of course, and it's hard not to, be really frustrated by that and see how it's affecting salmon runs and just like the whole ecosystem year to year. And so, yeah, I feel very strongly about supporting the ongoing work to restore the Elwha River and keep those fish safe and keep the river, out of the hands of like evil colonial powers that be and back to the stewardship of the local tribe. And yeah, part of that is this sail in particular is on the watershed, and it's like some of the last mature forest on this part of the watershed. And it's pretty critical in a lot of other ways too. But for me, that just ties into, feeling like I really want to help do my part in this restoration process and in keeping this river safe.
Would you say that it was kind of a progression over? You mentioned sort of your own past and affinity and connection to kind of the non-human world that was around you. I mean, to get to this point of taking the action you have, were there other moments that kind of led you to take the action in the form you're doing currently? I mean, can you sort of point to something in specific, or was it just kind of an over time sort of thing? It just, the moment was just there and it just seemed like the right and just thing to do? Or I guess, how would you describe sort of your getting to this point of kind of being, bold and courageous as you are to do what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of success with this tactic in Washington and in Oregon, specifically with like state and national lands. There is a pretty strong precedent for sort of tree sits, tree occupations, blockades, working alongside other kinds of action, legal action, protests, phone zaps, things like that. And for those kind of blockades in this area, I think there's a strong precedent for them being pretty successful. Not always, but I think when it's either that or the forest definitely gets cut, it's worth a try for sure.
You mentioned sort of, obviously the industrial practices that take precedent today, and, those things are legalized, right? They're justified as being for the common good, all the various things that get spoken about and then defended. And then, of course, if need be, they'll use force to make it happen. But as you think about forests and your relationship to it, and that you're part of it, the water you drink, the air you breathe is all connected to that. I mean, can you imagine, or have you imagined a different relationship to the forest, one where we obviously still could have resources from it, but not in the manner that sort of the dominant system is protecting? Like, what does that look like for you? Because I could imagine some people don't understand that we could have that relationship. So I'm just curious if you've, obviously having a few days now to sit there and be actually part of that particular place, if those are the kind of things that have crossed your mind at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would default to like really the native folks who are still on this land, but have been on this land and in a very different kind of relationship with it for like hundreds of years before what we see today, with how not even just how it's managed, but the idea, I think, itself of managing a forest, or like, I hate the word tree farm or crop or harvest or even like natural resources. Like, I think those are all a product of sort of just like Western industrial land relationships and management.
Someone trying to talk to you?
Yeah, the cops are trying to talk to me. Okay. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
The usual cops at the tree.
Do they
yelling around.
Do they come up and sort of have they been saying things to you on a regular basis, or what have they been saying?
Yeah, I mean, for a couple days they actually pulled off, and they were just coming twice a day, and that was okay. But then the last couple days they've been just like really annoying and needy.
Do you feel that's part of some tactic of theirs to try to stop this thing, or what?
Yeah. So today they actually, I had a friend visiting, and they cited them and with trespassing, and made them leave, like stuff like that, where it's just a lot more safe and a lot more sustainable when there's people who are actually competent around me, not just cops, because if there was an emergency, they really wouldn't be able to do anything about it anyways. But my friends who can climb trees and who are EMTs and I mean, it's really safe to have those people around, and they just don't want them here at all. It's all part of a tactic for sure.
Yeah. So what's giving you kind of the most sort of energy, or what's the most uplifting? What's sort of sustaining you, I guess, as you kind of feel or think about it?
I think it's really exciting how much money we've raised for forest defense, and how much like sort of conversation and awareness this has started, because I think there's going to be I think there's going to be a lot of, like energy and resources and like ability to do more forest defense moving forward from this. And I think that's just really exciting in and of itself. And then of course I'm holding out that this is putting pressure on Up the Grove and the governor to cancel this sale, because this is a really important piece of forest.
Are you letting the trees and the birds and the plants and everything around you kind of help you along, or?
Yeah, the tree that I'm sitting on is keeping me pretty dry, which is pretty fantastic. And yeah, the animals are really, really sweet. The birds, today a little hummingbird like came right outside my tarp and was kind of flying around. It was really cute.
Maybe just a couple other things to ask, and then if I haven't really gotten to something you'd want to say, please let me know. I mean, what in the process of getting to the point to take the action you have, like, what was that kind of deliberation like for you, and how did you weigh sort of the risks involved? Because there's a number of risks that you're facing right now, physical, legal, other things along those lines. Like how did you get through that, and how do you get through that sort of those realities, right? Those are typically things that people keep so many other people from not acting out, like not so much to get other people to do it, which would be great, but I mean, I guess what was your process to kind of bring you to that point to make that decision and stand strong?
Yeah, I think that's definitely, I mean, that's a really hard part about direct action. I think like probably most like queer people or anyone really who's experiencing marginalization, like the cops fucking scare me. And that was something I was really like worried about the possibility. And of course that's like immediately what happened, that I could get stuck and be not able to come down and just like not be able to see my friends or have visitors and just have cops. And that was the first 4 days of the sit, was just me and the cops.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, there's definitely some level of risk with this, because they could cut my line. And that has happened before with forest defense, where loggers or the police have participated in ways that results in the death of a forest defender. And I think that's scary. I think having folks around is a really safe tactic, and that's part of why it's so frustrating, that they're not really letting that go, because as far as like, feeling safe from weird people who come up and harass me, I think friends and community are what keep you the most safe always. But other than that, I mean, if someone starts cutting my tree, I'm prepared to drop all sorts of instant noodles and whatever, my pea jug, whatever, on them. And I think really like there's an element of privilege that goes into that decision too. Like, I know I'm not 100% safe, but I do think I have like a voice that people perceive as feminine, and I'm white, and like I think there's a lot of factors that I was thinking might change how people respond to me. And I think that has been the case. Like, there's been some cops who are like who show up really aggressive, and then when they see me, their tone totally shifts. Which is really interesting. A lot of the comments online are kind of like framing me as like a cishet dude in a tree, and it's really interesting because people are a lot more willing to be violent to someone if they perceive them as like having some proximity to masculinity or maleness even. And it's very different if they don't perceive that. And it doesn't, like, for me, I'm like non-binary and like I don't align with how I'm perceived often, but I do notice that as soon as people realize I'm not like a cis het dude in a tree, I get treated very differently. The safety thing's really hard. I think it's really depends on the context. I think it really depends on like sort of someone's strategy for trying to de-escalate and what sort of things they have available to de-escalate situations with. And then also there is just some level of risk tolerance that goes into that. Because yeah, at the end of the day, there's a lot that's out of my control in this situation, and that is scary, and that was scary when I was deciding to do it.
Mm-hmm. What would be the, both for that particular forest ecosystem, as well as sort of what this all represents for any community anywhere doing whatever other kind of defense against oppression or injustice, but what would be the ultimate outcome, sort of localized, and then, what would you want people to take away so that the action, I guess it's kind of a leading question, but the action itself isn't where it just sits, right? But these kind of things are happening everywhere. So I guess, how would you, what do you see, or what would you say, or what would you want people to know?
I think people should be ungovernable. I think, this is not the time to be scared. It's okay to be careful. It's okay to be scared, but this is not the time to act out of that fear, Like, we really can't let intimidation tactics, because of like the state getting really good at repressing direct action and activism, get in the way of us acting. I think sometimes that means we have to strategize how can we do that in ways that keep, people out of police custody and keep people safe. And maybe we have to refine some of our tactics. But I do think, like, something I really hope is that people, keep up the pressure and don't give in to fear, because it's really important to be brave right now.
Is there anything else that we haven't sort of talked about directly or indirectly that you'd want people to know? That, yeah, is there anything else you'd want to say?
Yeah, I think kind of to that last point, but I think it's really important to put this in the context of the support that I've been getting. Like, people have been coming up for rallies, like huge groups of people, just to say like hi and support folks who are like mountain bikers and hikers and friends, and all sorts of people have just like hiked up and showed up to sort of be like a protective presence. And I think it's like Yeah, I'm not doing this in isolation, and I don't think I could be doing this in isolation. I think it takes like really strong networks, and it takes showing up for each other to do this kind of thing effectively. And I'm so grateful for the people who've been showing up for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think that's it. I know I don't want to use up battery and whatever other things you need to be thinking about or doing or paying attention to. Appreciate you giving me this time. We'll continue to do what we can from where we're at and through people we know in and around there. We've definitely connected with folks who've actually been there on the ground. And so, yeah, we're doing what we can to support your action there. So thank you again.
I want to thank you for listening to our show and let you know a few ways you can support Truth and Reckoning. First, share this broadcast with your friends and family. Leave a positive review via your podcast app. Visit the Truth and Reckoning YouTube channel and leave a thumbs up and a comment. The full scope of the work of CELDF, including this show, comes with a financial cost. So if you're able to make a donation, go to CELDF.org. That's CELDF.org. But most importantly, our goal for this show is to empower you to take action. So the best way you can show your support is to get involved with your community and protecting the place where you live. Thank you very much.